let's start real simple. What does the X in XFL stand for?
The X in XFL, that's great. I think it stands for excellent. I think it stands for extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's our formal answer, but that's what I have in my mind.
Okay. It started as extreme, right?
It started as extreme, and I think it's safe to say that it's no longer extreme.
Okay. And what does the X stand for in XFL?
I'm not going to answer that question. That's a good question. I'm not answering that one.
Why do you think we are more attracted to football?
That is a really good question. I think it's in many respects a game that represents sort of the American spirit. You think of the frontier mentality, right? So the U.S. started more or less right with very broad strokes, right? Started, East Coast, and we moved west, and settled, right, and committed atrocities against the indigenous people, obviously.
Sure.
But there was sort of this frontier.
There's a lot of football fans here. There's people that love the game. There's a lot of young people that love the game, and this is going to be an opportunity to affordably see one.
Yeah, you say affordably see one compared to NFL pricing. Do you have any idea what that means? I don't have any idea.
Frederick Jackson Turner, the famous historian, said, forget exactly what year it was, the frontier is closed. It's been reached. Then we added Alaska and we added outer space, right? So, we've always had this idea. American people are always sort of movement-oriented.
Football's progress.
Progress. We're, that's football,
progress.
Right? No, you're moving down the field, and then the other team gets a chance to move into your space, and I think it's a very athletic game. I always thought football was very American because you had like little guys playing wide receiver that were fast and quarterbacks that could only do one thing, that's throw. And then you had big guys who blocked, and it was very specialized, right?
Everybody has their own special talent and skill.
And you'd never consider putting a left tackle, at running back, right?
But they're still wildly athletic.
Yeah, they are, but they're a critical component of a team, So I mean, that's a deep question. I'm not sure.
So it's a good example of how everybody plays a different piece or a different role in a greater plan.
That's right. Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest difference between the NFL and the XFL?
We'll find out. I mean, I think the biggest, the differences are the players playing the game, and we'll see more. When the players will still be talented, they'll still love football, and they're still going to be hardworking men. I mean, I've experienced that. I know that's going to be the case, and we'll just have to see. The exciting part is we don't have to tell you today. Right. We've got plenty of time. We're here just to, say hello to Tampa, let you know that we're going to do everything we can to do it right. And to put a team on the field that everybody in this community can be proud of.
Is there any major rule difference from the NFL to the XFL?
Yeah, we've got about a dozen innovations, rule changes, rule modifications that we're going to implement. That it's in special teams as well as on both sides of the ball. Some are what I would consider for the casual fan to be major. I think when people see our kickoff that we're looking at, they're going to say, "Oh, that's different."
What's the kickoff like?
I won't share it with you, but the key to our kickoff as we envision it, and we're testing it now.
Yeah.
But the key is that we're keeping the kickoff return in the game. The kickoff return is the play that everybody likes.
Right.
Nobody really cares about the kick per se. They care about the return. The return is becoming an endangered species, right?
It is.
Because both in college and in the NFL.
It's dangerous too.
It is dangerous, and it's dangerous because of the velocity of the players running down.
Right.
So we're trying to direct our change at the velocity of the players running down.
Okay.
So I'll leave it at that.
Let's leave it at that.
But that's something that, I think fans would see that and say, oh, that's different. That's kind of interesting. I sort of like that because I'm seeing a kickoff return. 6 or 7 or 8 times a game as opposed to maybe only once or twice.
So no fair catches.
We're on the punt. We're working on a no fair catch halo rule. And if you watch the CFL, that's what they do up there, and we think that makes some sense. We think that's also safer because it avoids that big blow up when
big crash.
Yeah, that big, and that's dangerous. I mean, that's not good for for player health.
Right.
We're looking at a 30-second clock versus the 40-second clock in the NFL. We're looking at a different overtime. We're looking at a different extra point sort of concept. So there's about a dozen things that we think. I think that what fans will see when they turn on the TV and watch the XFL is quality 11-on-11 football with a couple of twists, right? So we like to say unique but familiar to the viewers.
Yeah. We haven't been able to fill up the stadium for a Bucs game. Why do you think we'll be able to do it for an XFL game?
Well, I think that's a loaded question. You know, I think that Oliver has talked about it. I'll just repeat what he said because I don't feel like I'm in position to do that. But, you know, they've allocated seats. They don't expect to draw what the Bucks draw, even when the stadium isn't full. That's not the intentions of this league.
What is the intention?
Well, I think that again, it's more of what I've heard. I think it's a good question of allocating 20,000 seats and seeing where it goes from there. That's what I've heard Oliver say that. So I'm just repeating what I've heard, and it's our job. And my job, quite frankly, is to put the best team possible on the field. And we've got experts.
We use experts.
And professionals in other positions to bring fans in. But good quality football is a starting point, and that's our responsibility as a coaching staff.
When you say we're working on different rules, is there a board of XFL people?
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, it's just you.
No, it's our coaches.
Okay.
We've got a group of former coaches, guys that aren't coaching with us, Doug Flutie, former player, Jim Caldwell, John Fox, that have worked with us on a lot of these changes, right? We've also taken these changes and we're testing them with real players. We tested them with some JUCO kids, junior college players, back in December. We're working in Jacksonville just next weekend with a group of guys that are in full uniform, quality players, all former college guys, doing the same thing with an organization in Austin, Texas called the Spring League. So we're running, for example, 30 or 40 of these kickoffs to see does it work, right?
Yeah.
We can think about it, you know, in the meeting room, but it's more important to really make sure that we're actually doing our R&D.
And you also get to see, is this exciting?
That's right. Is it exciting? Is there an unintended consequence that we're not thinking about?
Right.
You know, that sort of thing. So we're trying to test.
Yeah. The idea
we call it theses testing.
Sure. Were you a wrestling fan before you got involved in the XFL?
I wasn't, but I've heard a lot about it. You asked some interesting questions, my friend.
With an interesting news.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Yeah.
And the idea of faster play, more exciting gameplay, in a climate right now where everybody's hypersensitive about injuries,
right.
How can we continue to guarantee the safety of our players but still raising the level of excitement?
So I think player safety is best guaranteed by following the science, right? So, you know, we've learned so much in the last 15 to 20 years about, you know, mental brain health, right? And, you know, and subconcussive blows and the accumulation of those subconcussive blows, et cetera. So, you know, some of the things that we're looking at, and this is something that Pop Warner just passed, which is abolishing the three-point stance.
Really?
Yeah.
So what would be the alternative?
A two-point stance. So, I suppose a 4-point stance could be the alternative, but yeah,
Sure.
I'm not sure anybody's in a 4-point anymore. The theory is, at least, that when players are both in a 3-point stance, the first contact is helmet to helmet.
Right.
And if you're in a 2-point stance, and you know, go watch a left tackle or a right tackle is almost always in a 2-point stance. They're hand. It's hand play.
Okay.
And you might get a helmet, you know, to helmet, but it's going to be after there's some, you know, some of this hand fighting going on. The CFL has a rule that many Americans don't realize, which is their defensive line has to be 1 yard off the ball.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And we're trying to think with our coaches, think through that. What does that mean, right? Does that increase, you know, helmet to helmet, or does that actually decrease it because of that same sort of logic? It's you know, hand to hand because you're a little bit further away. To answer your question, I think ultimately player safety at all positions is really best guaranteed by, you know, following the science, being inquisitive, you know, being open-minded. You know, the game has to change, I think, in order to adapt, right, to the changing science. Nobody wants to, you know, I don't want to be involved in a game that is knowingly inflicting, you know, brain trauma on young men or you know, middle-aged men or whatever. You know, that's not going to, it's not going to survive. So I think you have to be open, honest, willing to innovate, willing to try new things, and look around. I mean, there's some things that are happening outside of, you know, the U.S. with American football that I think are worthwhile to take a look at and test.
You said you worked with NFL Europe for 10 years. Yeah. What was that experience like?
It was a blast.
Were Europeans equally as enthusiastic about football as Americans are?
No, of course. I mean, they're enthusiastic about soccer.
Soccer, yeah. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think soccer is a great game. It's a universal global game. It's a very inexpensive game to play.
You don't need much.
Yeah, you don't need much. That's not to say that the NFL does games in Wembley Stadium that sell out. We did games literally in Frankfurt and elsewhere that had 40, 50,000 fans. So there's a market for the sport. The European sport market is very monochromatic. It's soccer and soccer and more soccer, right? And then when you in the off season, it's indoor soccer.
Right.
We've got football, baseball, basketball, hockey. Soccer is growing, right? We got college sports. We got professional sports. What they really have over there, I'm generalizing, but it's all soccer.
XFL was the brainchild of Vince McMahon, and he is also the founder of WWE, WWF. Are you a wrestling fan yourself?
I wouldn't say I'm an aficionado of wrestling. I've watched some, and I've been to a WWE events. I didn't really know much about it. I watched it as a kid, and so then watched other sports, right? So I've learned obviously a good bit about WWE and what they do. It's a fascinating industry and a fascinating company, but I wouldn't. I'm not very good at any trivia questions.
Sure.
You
think anybody might get confused, whereas the WWE is fantasy action, but the XFL is real action?
Well, WWE does what it does. We're very respectful of their business model, right? And Vince hired me to run the football league, so I really don't give too much thought to what happens at WWE. My goal is to develop a league that has good quality football, that is entertaining, up tempo, all the things that we've talked about. That's my focus, and I kind of stay out of the WWE business.
Gotcha. Maybe the X could be explosive football league.
Could be.
Expansive football league.
Could be explosive, exciting.
Exciting.
Excellent. There's lots of different.
But you're staying away from extreme. No extreme again?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
So you don't think that word tests too well?
Well, I don't know if it tests well or not. But I'm staying away from it.
Are there any specific rule differences about
We haven't even decided it yet.
Oh, really?
Yes,
So we haven't even decided.
we're 8 months away from all that coming to
Right.
fruition.
So we still have plenty of time.
lot of planning to do.
Gotcha.
Okay.